Salton Sea Authority, which is Thursday, March 20th. I'm saying that to remind myself what day it is. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Supervisor Singh.
Thank you. Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we will now have roll call, please.
President Dockstader,
Present.
Vice President Estrada, Secretary Gutierrez, Treasurer Kelly,
Here.
Director Plancarte. Oh, my apologies. Director Aguilar,
Here.
Director Singh,
Present.
Director Perez, ex officio Joche.
I see Director Perez on.
Thank you.
Present, thanks.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have any public comments reserved for comments on non-action agenda items and matters not on the agenda. California law prohibits members of the board from taking actions on matters not on the agenda. Members of the public may address the board regarding any matter within the authority's jurisdiction, are invited to speak to any specific action item in the agenda at the time it's called. All other remarks should be provided during this general public comment period. Do we have any public comments at this time? Oh, hang on. I think we do have a public comment. Yes. Okay. Miss Sinclair, if you can come up to, I think either one, right? Of the microphones, that way everybody can hear you, and then you might need to press, see how it's red? You need to push the button. Thank you.
Hello. I'm new here, so apologies if this is not where this comment needs to go. My name is Larissa
Okay,
Sinclair.
and I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. I
Sure.
apologize. This is my fault. This, especially because it's your first time. I am gonna read this just so that you know the protocol. Speaker should state their name for the record and address all comments to the chair, and you're limiting your remarks to 3 minutes, so you will be timed. And normally you do fill out the request to speak form, which you did do. So anyway, go ahead. Thank you.
My name is Larissa Sinclair. My husband and I just moved to North Shore. We bought a house there. And I'm just curious, I know a lot of great work has been done on preserving the Salton Sea nature, and I'm curious and would like to express, I feel there's a need to do more to preserve the culture and promote it as like a touristic destination to people anywhere else in the world that aren't just like scientists and environmentalists and birders. I think there's a lot to see around the sea. And so I'm just wondering, is there like a strategy in place for this, for like tourism infrastructure development, for promotion? For example, a visitor center that isn't attached to the state rec area only, maps, more online information so people can make a decision to visit and feel safe doing so. Maybe reopening some of the strategic campgrounds, such as the one in Bombay Beach, more shoreline access. And where is the Salton Sea History Museum? That's all I was wondering.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. And hope you will stay for the remainder of the meeting. I think this is actually a good day for you to be here because of CV strategies, and you can see a whole program that's being outlined. But additionally, like the comment of the Salton Sea Museum. Oh, she's putting that out there into the world. Are there any other public comments?
Not at this time.
We are going to go ahead and move on to board comments. Does any of the board members have a comment before we begin? Seeing almost none, I am going to give Patrick a little tap about the agenda. We need the agenda out at least 24 hours, so we can read it ahead of time. So this is my little warning to read. I need the whole packet. That's just my little.
Appreciate that. The agenda is distributed 72 hours in advance, and the packet was distributed 24 hours in advance.
Okay. Just, I don't even know if mine got it 24 hours in advance.
And I appreciate that, and we do endeavor to have the completed board packet. In a perfect world, we would have the completed board packet, the concurrent with the distribution of the agenda. And I do take your direction seriously, Madam President, and it is a goal that we set, and we ambitiously pursue it, and we will strive to continue to meet those goals.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. All right. I see no other comments. I'm going to go ahead and move on to possible board action onto our agenda, although I did not see that on here about approving the agenda. I'm mixing up my meetings. Don't we need to approve the agenda?
Changed.
Okay, I don't know if there is any changes. However, before we approve the consent calendar, I do have a few comments. I want to kind of go through that a little bit, but then I would like to approve the consent calendar together since we have to do a roll call vote. Let me get to, and it's an easy question. I know it. It's just I don't know the answer. No, I don't know the answer. And you probably know what it is. Hang on. Am I out of order? CSDA, because I had to look that up, which is the California Special Districts Association that we pay the membership for. Do we have to belong to that because we are a special district? That's one of my questions.
We do not. And
Can you put your mic on, please?
we do not, and we have variously belonged and not belonged. They do offer training and they do offer resources that we have in the past found useful, but we haven't consistently belonged to CSDA.
Okay, that was one of my questions. Just, I realize it's not that much money, but I just wondered if we needed to belong. That's all.
That is a question that we have asked internally as well.
Okay. So, but you still think that's good for, because I'm assuming that's a year membership, it's almost
Yes.
$2,000. Okay. Right.
Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm.
I did have actually something I'd like to share.
Sure.
It was about 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity, so this will be the fourth time in 7 years of Yale architecture students that have come to visit the Salton Sea and the communities around it. And so I think it was March 1st, they came to visit. Every year in their course, these are architecture students that are about to graduate. So this coming May, they will graduate, but their project will be focused on a sustainable living, nomad culture, landscaping environment with structure. So this year it's about a kind of a tiny home. So they will actually produce their own designs, and I'm hoping that we can get those and share them with our planning department if they are feasible, that those plans could be adopted and approved and actually put in practice. But this is going to continue. So there were 22 of them, and they got to see Sunny Bono. They got to see Red Hill, the Mud Pots. We went to East Jesus, Nyland, and Bombay Beach. They did go to North Shore. And basically the professors will do this every year. COVID kind of put a break in that, but they continue to come back and offer, and they are excited to visit. So there's pictures of them on the swing at Bombay Beach, and they'll be back next year. So if you're interested, come out and say hello when they're here next time.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. And then I'm going to move on to another question, and this is just for me. Just looking over the grant 68, the DWR proposition, that's in the budget for the 2 million. Was that originally granted? This is again is for my personal knowledge in 2018, in 2018.
That's when the original grant agreement was signed.
But is the 2 million, like, has it been that long that we've had the 2 million and it hasn't been spent? That's my question.
So it's actually a $19.25 million grant. And and I know Supervisor Perez is probably steaming as you ask these questions because this project has been long in the process of getting in the ground. It had to go through a process initially once we secured the grant to identify the location and the project that was intended to be built. And then we had to do some feasibility as to the location, and we determined that they had some technical challenges. And the site was, the project concept was revisited. And right now we're evaluating the revised concept. And we've had several meetings starting late last year and again earlier this week to review with the states the current concept and strategy for that project. But no, that's a $19.25 million grant to the Salton Sea Authority for the North Lake Pilot Demonstration Project. And every year when we do the budget, we try to estimate how much work is going to be in the ground. And what's reflected in our actual financial statements is what we're actually funding, and it speaks for itself.
Okay, so I just wanted clarification on that. And then obviously on the following page, the Desert Shores is also in the same case as in those funds were originally appropriated in 2018, correct?
That sounds about right. I'm
Okay.
not sure.
All right, that was.
I can get you the exact dates of the grant.
Just the year is good.
Madam
So,
Chair,
yep.
may I interrupt?
Yeah.
So I had questions on this item as well. This is item B. And
Oh, I haven't, well, technically, okay, go ahead. I don't-
Sorry, so I was
I don't know if
just-
we've gone to B yet, although, yeah, maybe I went ahead a little bit. I
okay,
mean,
so I think that was my question. So
okay,
had we jumped ahead of consent and then should we go back to
hang on,
consent?
yeah, let's go
So-
back to consent. If no one else,
We're on A, and I kind of trickled into B by accident.
yeah,
Okay, well,
okay. Well, maybe it was my questions. Okay, if no one else has any comments on A, I would propose a motion to
Approve the consent.
approve it, to improve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Madam Chair.
Second.
It was so moved by Alex, I believe, seconded by Martha. Is that correct? I'm just making sure. Okay. All those, we have to have a roll call vote, don't we, Lisa? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Dockstader,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Yes.
Treasurer Kelly,
Yes.
Director Singh,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
aye.
Director Cardenas.
Yes.
Director Perez,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Okay, now moving on to the North Lake Demonstration Project, the Proposition 68 grant maturity.
So we dove into that a little bit already. What we are doing here is we're extending the grant agreement through the end of this year. It's scheduled to, it was extended once based on what I discussed earlier, that the project concept had some technical challenges with it. And so it had needed to be re-envisioned. And so we met in Sacramento late last year and came up with an alternative concept that we believe addressed the technical challenges, both seismic and hydrologic and resource constraints. And the engineers have been working with the state to, pardon the pun, flush that out. Water is one of the issues as far as whether or not there is enough water for the project. A couple of things that are affecting the water there's a water availability and a water quality issue. The water availability issue is affected by the emergence of accidental wetlands around the sea. There's 7,000 or 8,000 acres of these wetlands that have developed since these projects were originally conceived. And those projects have formed critical habitat for like rail. And so they have to be protected. And so the 7,000 acres of water would be 35,000 acres, 7,000 acres of land would be a certain increment of water that would be necessary to keep those wetlands alive. And so as part of the overall process to evaluate the feasibility of this project, we had to look at what supplemental water is available to make sure it was adequate for the project. But not only that, we also had to look at it on a seasonal basis, because in the summer months, there tends to be less water available for the project. So we're also working and looking and evaluating groundwater resources in the area, both in the Indio subbasin and outside of the Indio subbasin, to make sure that the project can be feasible and sustainable. This is a pilot demonstration project. Little did we know when we launched into it that we'd be trying to figure out so many problems associated with it. We knew we were dealing we were breaking new ground and learning new things, but it has been one exercise in education after another. But we believe, based on where we're at right now and based on what is available, that the project that has been drafted is an achievable project. We just need to get between now and the end of the year to prove up the 30% design, to determine the cost, and to move forward to get the project in the ground. I hope that was helpful.
So just for clarity, as a milestone, we're trying to get to a 30% design. Is that where the milestone that we're trying to reach here?
At least, I'm not sure that the design won't be further along by that time. I think the greater challenge is the total feasibility of the project, which would be sufficient design work to determine the costing and the availability of those resources.
Is there anything you're asking specifically from this board, Mr. O'Dowd, as far as?
Just the ratification of the extension through December of 25.
Madam Chair, I actually have a follow-up question.
Sure.
So having witnessed all the various delays in this important project, I'm concerned that this March 26th date for the deadline for funds being requested is going to be very difficult to achieve. So what is the mechanism for us will we be able, I guess, to go back and ask for an extension for this date? I'm looking at the draft agreement.
The extension, it was once extended through March 31st. And what we're doing of this year. We had previously extended it. So what we're doing now is we're extending it through December 31st. And that's what is being approved by the board right now. It's an extension through December 31st of this year.
No, I understand that, but the agreement says that no funds may be requested after March 31st of next year. So my question is, how realistic is that, given our recent history on this project? And
Oh, it's going to be extended again.
and well,
I mean, but we don't know.
But you have a
What we
crystal
don't
ball
know-
over there?
So the reason we're doing this is to say, okay, we want a feasible project under an achievable time frame at a determinable cost, right? But we need until the end of the year to figure out how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, and where those funds are going to come from. So between now and the end of the year, all of that has to be determined.
so
in
this
order
will
for
likely
project to move
be
forward.
extended.
What's that?
This will likely be extended.
If the project is feasible and everybody has the expectation that it will be feasible, it will be extended.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
I wish it was simpler than that.
I do too.
Supervisor Perez would like to speak.
Yeah, just very quickly, thank you and appreciate the update as well as the questions. Let me see here. Let me try to say this in a very diplomatic way. Obviously, we've been here before and staff on the ground and the organizations we've worked with have been very helpful, and the nonprofits. And obviously this board, I think, has been consistent with this concept of the North Lake. Fortunately, yeah, we did come across some technical aspects that we were not even considering at the time. And it seems like even though we did a feasibility study at a larger scale, now we have to do another feasibility study at a much smaller scale. And with that, obviously, the state DWR specifically is saying, yeah, extend it. We're okay with it. As a matter of fact, we want you to extend it. And we'll provide you the funding. So they say. I think what concerns me though is how my understanding is folks went up to Sacramento, or maybe there was a conversation with staff like Pat and Juan and maybe Patrick and don't know who else, and some folks from DWR, and how they were not I guess truthful or honest about the situation and the fact that they are lacking capacity and staffing. And instead, we're requesting or asking us that they need another study and that they need certain items and kind of putting together a list of things that we needed. When the truth eventually finally came out after staff on our end pushed back a bit and said, we're done. Meaning we're tired of the circles that we're constantly going in as a result of not getting commitments from the state. And we're about ready to walk away. All of a sudden, I think they might have heard that loud and clear, at least from my understanding, and they went ahead and they said, you know what, the truth is that we are just lacking staffing, and maybe Patrick can share something here or Pat, but my understanding is that Juan Perez out of our staff, the county level, our CEO really pushed the fact that, you know, what else is it that they need, and we're not necessarily willing to move in that direction because we're tired of going in circles or not being told the truth and not receiving the funding, and all of a sudden being asked of more items. So here we are once again. Now we are doing another feasibility study for a much smaller scale type of North Lake pilot project. And my hope is that the state, DWR, works with us in good faith. You know, the locals here are ready for something to see, for something to materialize. We want to be partners, but we don't want to be played with. Let's work and collaborate and cooperate with each other and figure this out and come up with something that's feasible. And let's try to do this as soon as we possibly can. Otherwise, and we've said it out here within the county, and I've heard other members as well in the Salton Authority, we're ready just to step away and let the state take over. Go ahead. We got a lot of other things to worry about too. And I hate to say it that way, but here we are after so many decades of not seeing anything. And so I think we got to sooner or later put our foot down, and that's what I'm doing. That's what we're doing. So we're gonna give one last shot.
Thank you, Director Perez. I will echo your sentiments and say we're frustrated. I feel frustrated that it takes so long to get things done. Do you have anything else to add?
I'd like to maybe open it up for Patrick, if you're on a conversation, or Pat, not sure if Juan's on, or anybody else, maybe Costello. Don't know if anybody from the county was, or Riverside County was actually involved in that conversation, but that's what I heard. And I'm hoping they're hearing me right now. And I'm not saying this as a way to be angry. I mean, I guess I am a little bit, but not to point fingers or like, threaten or anything like that. It's just like, come on, man, let's figure this out. And now we gotta worry about the conservancy bill too, right? Let's figure that out too. I'm done.
Point taken. Anybody else?
Well, just so I'm clear, Mr. O'Dowd, I'm just trying to understand if this is a PM issue, a project management issue, or if the goalposts are being moved by the state. So if you can help me like package it in at a fourth grade level here, in terms of the state of affairs of the project, which I'm in full support of, but I'm still not really understanding what I can do other than ratify this agreement to keep things moving. So again, do we have the talent, the skill sets to address this from a PM standpoint? And do we know exactly what we need to do to get the project done? Or is the state moving the goalpost on us?
So I don't know that I would characterize it as moving the goalpost, but I do think it is a somewhat of a dynamic environment at the state. And I do think that the state does have, like every organization, limited resources. And there are requests from the project team to the state. Joe Shea, our new assistant secretary, was actually on 2 calls with us yesterday to address these very specific items. So I'm thankful that he is engaged directly. And I'm confident that under his leadership, the message has been telegraphed clearly by Supervisor Perez. And I think that this project is going to move forward under this extension to a point where we are going to get a project in the ground that's reflective of what the community needs to see out there.
Got it. Let me just make one last final footnote or
Not putting you on
inquiry.
the spot, Joe.
But, and I'm prepared to make a motion here. I just want to ask make one final inquiry in regards to the burrowing out. Do we anticipate any type of biological assessment or any concerns as it relates to the burrowing out in regards to this project specifically?
So this project is covered generally under the SSMP environmental approvals. There may be some work on the edges of this project, but burrowing owl is not something that has come up as a specific issue in this instance. In any call that I've been on, I know that the rail is a listed species that has some impact on this project. So there are species concerns that are being addressed as part of the overall project planning and design.
But at this point, there's no consideration that's being,
Not
there's
that
no
I'm aware
discussions
of.
regarding the burrowing out. Okay.
Not that I'm aware.
Madam Chair, if there's no additional comments or questions, I'm prepared to make a motion.
I think that's fabulous.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and motion that we move forward with staff's recommendation that we extend the maturity date and consider this ratification agreement. And that is my motion that I'm in support of the extension.
Second.
I'd like to hear if possible, Madam Chair and colleagues, from DWR. I'd like for them to maybe state out loud for the public. Are we gonna do this? Are we moving forward? Are we committed? Because I think they need to know.
Does Joe want to say something? I see you are unmuted.
Yes, thank you, President Dockstader, and sorry that I couldn't be with you all today. Totally appreciate the supervisor's comments here. I'm also appreciating what Director Cardenas asked for in terms of a response for what's happening with the project at a high level. This is my assessment, 3.5 months on the job and getting up to speed on this project. We still need to answer, is there enough water to support this project? And is the water quality going to be sufficient for the goals of this project that we want to achieve? We had 2 hours of calls just yesterday with consultants for the project that the county has on board. And we had our state technical team teasing out some of those answers. We've got more work to do on our end, and I understand that there's a much longer history here that predates me. There's a lot of frustration. I acknowledge that. I just want to state that this is a really important priority for me and for our program. And we are pursuing answers to these questions because we know that there have been a lot of changes to date to try to find a concept that works. And we've got our eye on these critical questions we need to answer. And, we look forward to working with the consultants at the county level and with our team to get those answers as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If there's no other comments, we do have a motion to approve the grant maturity date, and we also have a second at this point in time. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
President Dockstader,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Yes.
Treasurer Kelly,
Yes.
Director Singh,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
Director Cardenas,
Aye.
Director Perez,
Aye.
motion passed.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's move on to Desert Shores Restoration, GAFCON contract amendment approval.
Madam President, in October of 23, we brought GAFCON on board to help us with a project that the community started probably a decade ago, trying to address the declines that have taken place as the sea recedes. We were able to secure as you mentioned earlier, some funding from the Bureau on that, but we really needed some outside help to do this. And GAFCON has been a tremendous partner in working together with the community, identifying some of the technical challenges associated with this project. We did, as approved by this board, we did hire Nichols Engineering to do some geotechnical work on the site. GAFCON is overseeing that on our behalf, but they do have a contract which has exhausted its current funding. This request is to increase the funding in their contract by $25,000. And I'd like to ask Paul Nahar, Executive Vice President, I think, of GAFCON Inc., to provide a little bit of an update on the project before we open this up for discussion.
Oh, go ahead, Paul. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm pleased to provide an update on the feasibility study for the Channels Restoration Project. In February, the channel survey was completed by Nichols Engineering. 15 locations were identified as testing areas on parcels surrounding the channels. Letters have been sent to the parcel owners requesting consent for access to their properties for the testing. We have received some consents back in the mail. We're still working on more. We have engaged with the local community in asking for their assistance to reach owners of parcels that have not responded. The community has been fantastic in reaching out to others and have pledged to do more. Today, an email was sent out by the president of the Bahia del Mar Association to residents asking for their assistance. So we're very grateful to the community's support on that. We're working on a backup plan just in case we are not able to obtain the consents of all of the owners, and looking at other parcels that may be used as test sites should the preferred test locations not be available to us. We have also been working with IID and especially Mike Pacheco to streamline the encroachment permits that we have requested from IID, and we're grateful for IID's assistance. Yesterday, we met with the County of Imperial, in particular John Gay, and his team to discuss the encroachment permit for the test well drilling location. And John and his team were most helpful in moving that forward. We expect a permit application to be submitted by tomorrow. In addition, we have also working with another portion of the county to obtain a permit for drilling. If all goes well, we believe that we may be able to commence drilling on the test well site in early April. That is better than what we expected, and we're grateful for Nicholas Engineering's hard work to obtain a drilling equipment in order to begin drilling. In addition, we are working on the possibility of beginning testing on the 15 location sites. If we are able to obtain half of the consents by the end of this month, we will begin to test at least the locations for which we have consent in early April. So a lot of progress, more work to be done. But again, we're working closely with the community in order to obtain the needed requests. I'm available for any questions if you'd like.
Paul, just out of curiosity, are some of those landowners absentee? Like, is that one of the issues why they're not responding back?
That's correct. Some of them, we're not sure if we have the correct addresses for them. They're PO boxes. And some of those owners, we understand from the community, may have moved out of state. And so we have been working with the county assessor's office to make sure that we have the latest and greatest address for each one of those parcel owners.
It's called Onyx app. It's an app. It's the best. Just saying.
Onyx, can you spell that for me, Director?
It's X Hunt. I need to send it. I'll try to screenshot. What is it on it? It's X. It is an amazing app, and it will give you the address of the landowner, the property tax address.
Well, thank you very much. We will use that.
It's expensive. It's an expensive app, but
okay.
There you go.
Thank
Does
you.
anybody else have any questions?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Good morning, Paul. I just want to make sure in regards to the encroachment permits concerning IAD, I just want to make sure I'm taking away the information accurately. Are you waiting on us or are we waiting on you?
You are waiting on us. We have consolidated all of the requests into one request, and that is what Mr. Pacheco suggested that we do, because the IID was willing to essentially provide us one fee, and as opposed to multiple fees for each encroachment permit. So we're grateful to Mr. Pacheco on that, and so we'll be submitting that within the next day or so.
Perfect. Can I make an inquiry in terms of county permitting and what you're waiting on there? Are you waiting on them or are you waiting on us or waiting on you?
Again, we are waiting on us. After speaking with Mr. Gay, we received kind of clarity on what his expectations were, and also some advice in relation to site control, security, fencing, other key issues that are important to protect the equipment. So in that instance, Mr. Gay gave us guidance on that, and that process is now, we will proceed under his direction.
Perfect. Final question in regards to site control. So what percentage do you believe we have site control regarding this project?
We have 1/3. 1/3 of the parcels we have consent for. So we've got another 10 or 11 or so that we need to obtain consent for. We've sent a couple of mailings, and now we're going with a more aggressive approach in terms of posting things perhaps at the local VHW, having the community make telephone calls for us if they're able to, working on collaborative efforts with whoever we can, such as the website that Director Dockstetter just mentioned, looking for other ways to contact these folks. There is one property owner in particular that owns a number of parcels, and we understand that he generally doesn't respond to mail. So we may look at knocking on a door if we can locate his address and perhaps explain what we're trying to achieve. But if we cannot obtain those consents, we will find alternative sites, and we are working on those alternative sites in order to proceed with the work no matter what.
Perfect. Appreciate your technical expertise there, Paul. Thank you.
So I would just say that has always been a concern with this project. And when we worked with Nicholas to identify the perfect sites for testing, we recognize that we can't let the adequate get in the way of the perfect. So since the very beginning, we've been working on alternative strategies to make sure we get the technical information we need to answer the questions necessary to move this project forward.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question. So what is the total amount of the grant?
$1.25 million.
Okay, so we have plenty of room for any additional extensions. Thank you.
Since probably 2018, right? Anyway, what? Ryan?
So, Paul, great that you've answered a lot of the questions that came from the dais here, but the question I have is, when will the sampling and when will the pilot well, the test well, be performed?
In early April.
Paul, I thought you said April 1st.
I can't use that date. It'll be, people won't believe me if I say April 1st. So I'm just going to say early April. That is what Nicholas has informed us. We've already reached out to reserve the drilling equipment, and we presume that the county has informed us that we can get a drilling a permit within 1 week. And so if we submit it by tomorrow, we'll be fine to commence drilling in early April.
So, Mr. Kelly, don't post on Facebook when they start drilling that they're drilling for lithium. You could start a whole rumor. It'll go viral.
If there's a rig that shows up and it's drilling in Desert Shores, I think everybody will know that something's actually gonna happen. If it's water, lithium, if it's wastewater, geez, somebody will be happy with that.
Is there any more discussion? I'd like to entertain a motion. Does anybody want to make a motion?
So move.
Okay, it has been moved for the Desert Shores restoration for the GAFCON contract amendment approval. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote, please, Lisa?
President Dockstader,
Aye.
Vice President Estrada,
Yes.
Treasurer Kelly,
Yes.
Director Singh,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Aye.
Director Cardenas,
C.
Director Perez,
Aye.
motion pass.
Thank you. Moving on, ID presentation. Dylan, you're up. Thank you so much for being here today.
You guys hear me? I do have a presentation. Hopefully it'll be put up here in a second.
Ooh, it's a secret presentation.
Your IT or?
Yeah, he's IT. He's a man of many trade.
There it is.
Oh,
All right.
You ready to go, Dylan?
Ready to go.
How's your grandmother?
Good. So hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Mohammed. I work for the Imperial Irrigation District as a water conservation analyst. I want to thank you for having me here today. I'll be talking about giving an update on the implementation of the System Conservation Implementation Agreement that IID has with the USBR. We actually have two conservation agreements with USBR now. The first, you can go to the next slide, please. The first is the 2023 SCIA that was executed in December of 2023. And that agreement allowed IID to create 106,000 acre, little over 106,000 acre feet to be left in Lake Mead for the benefit of the system. For those that don't know, Lake Mead is one of the major reservoirs on the Colorado River. This agreement allowed for about 1.5 feet of elevation to be added to Lake Mead over in 2023. The second agreement that IID has is a 2024 to 2026 SCIA, which was signed on August 12th, 2024. This agreement funds the creation of up to 700,000 acre feet of conservation through 2026, which will add up to 11 acre feet over that time frame. There is an annual creation limit of 300,000 acre feet each year for IID. So from 2024 to 2026, we can only create 300,000 acre feet a year for conservation with a cumulative limit of to 700,000 acre feet. We do have, in 2024, we implemented 2 reclamation authorized conservation programs to create that water. The first was what we call the deficit irrigation program. This is a new program that was first implemented in 2024. And then our on-farm efficiency conservation program, which we have been implementing since 2013. Go to the next slide, please. So what is the deficit irrigation program? This is one of the ones that was approved by reclamation to be creating the water for the system conservation implementation agreements, or SCIAs. This was approved by the IID board on July 2nd, 2024, contingent upon completion of environmental compliance under NEPA and CEQA, obtaining approval or a permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and approval of funding in an executed 2024 to 2026 SCIA, which I mentioned was approved on August 12th, 2024. This approval also delegated to the GM to finalize the DIP program. It delegated to the general counsel to finalize the contract associated with the program, and it initiated the solicitation process for the 24 DIP program. That solicitation process did run from July 2nd to July 16th, 2024. So about 2 weeks. We're on a time schedule to try to get things going so we could have a program in 2024. So what is the deficit irrigation program? The deficit irrigation program involves not irrigating an established alfalfa, Bermuda grass, or Klein grass crop for 45 to 60-day term during a specified summer growing period. The 2024 DIP did have a truncated schedule on it, just for those necessary environmental approvals needing to happen. We did get those approvals on August 12th, 2024. So we were able to implement the program starting August 13th, 2024, and it ran from August 13th till September 30th. Which meant that we could have between a 45 or 49-day deficit irrigation program during the program. That the deficit irrigation program is the time period in which a field that was participating in the program needed to not irrigate its field. This is a voluntary program and is compensated participation with conservation payment to offset the reduction in crop yields that were occurring for the farmers and reseeding costs. We did hear from farmers that they lost from 1 to 2 cuttings from this program, just from the time frame that they were having to not irrigate the field. So the environmental coverage that we receive for the program does have a limit on it each year that we can create through the program. So we can create 226,000 acre feet from this program each year, or we can have up to 180,000 acres of participation in the program from fields. We do have a full program description for the program on IID's website. You can be found at iid.com/DIP if for anybody that would like to have more information on the program. Go to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I didn't advance the slide previously. Can you go to the next one, please? There we go. So as far as DIP compliance and verification, it was very similar to what we did for the traditional fallowing program. So we have a True Point delivery system, which is a software we use to track all deliveries that we receive from the farmers. In that delivery system, we have what are called crop codes, and that signifies what's in each of the fields, what crop is in each of the fields. We created 3 separate crop codes that were specifically tied to the DIP program, and they had attributes associated with them, which did not allow fields to be the possibility of ordered water on those fields in our system. So it effectively cut off the water for those fields, and they were all assigned to the fields that were participating in the program. In addition to this, we also locked the delivery gates where possible. So we did deploy about 1,800 locks throughout the 2024 DIP program. And then for any gate that was sharing the gate with a field that was not participating in the program, the farmers was required to put a physical obstruction, so that would prevent the water from getting to the field. And they had to provide pictures of that. We had, I don't know the exact numbers, but we had full compliance on that as far as pictures coming in for us. You can go to the next slide, please. So DIP monitoring and vegetation mapping. So all direct to sea, Salton Sea drains were monitored for flow throughout the program implementation period. There's a couple maps, you guys probably can't see them up here, but the maps show the drains that we were monitoring. Each, there's 3 pictures up there. Each color represents a different drain and the acreage associated with that drain specifically. So if at any point, if more than 50% of the acreage on a given drain was participating in the program, it did require us to monitor the flow in that drain and make sure that it wasn't outside historic flow rates that we have seen. Should it be outside those flow rates, then it would require us to take action. In 2024, there was only 1 drain that met that 50% threshold, but after examining the flow data, there was no action needed on that drain. IID also did a vegetation mapping of all wetlands that were just south of the Salton Sea where all our drains go into, so we can examine for later and compare it to what effects the dip may have. Go to the next slide, please. Mind going to the next slide? Thank you. I'll be frozen on it. Frozen.
Because we like the maps still in. Just wanted to see the map.
I wish they were a little bit bigger so you guys to see them.
Mhm.
So the 3 maps do show each area around the Salton Sea where IID drain directly into the Salton Sea. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that one right there. Perfect. So as far as the 2024 dip, provisionally, we're still doing finalizing the numbers, but provisionally we had total acreage of about 154,245 acres in the program. And then we had a total conservation of 172,389 acre feet in 2024. What we're calculating now, that could change slightly once we finalize the programs or finalize the numbers for the programs. The 2 maps there do show the acreage that was involved in the program in 2024, the left side being the north side of the valley, and then the south, or the right side being the south end of the valley. Go to the next slide, please. So this pie chart, it tries to visualize what percent of acreage was associated with each type of crop. So blue would be the alfalfa, green would be Bermuda grass, and gray would be the Klein grass. There's 2 circles here. So the inner circle represents the acreage associated with the program. The outer circle represents the conservation associated with the program. So about 56% of the acreage that was in the program was alfalfa, and 32% was Bermuda grass and 12% was Klein grass. As far as conservation goes, conservation volumes, about 49% of it came from alfalfa, 36% came from Bermuda grass, and 15% came from Klein grass. So Bermuda grass and Klein grass did have a larger conservation yield associated with them. That's why you're seeing the shift there in the graph. Go to the next slide, please. So IID does intend to implement the dip in 2025. There is going to be the main difference though from 2024 is that we'll have a longer implementation period. We do intend to have the program run from June to September. So that means we'll have 4 months that a field can choose a 45 or 60-day period to have the deficit irrigation period. We believe that this will spread out the effects of any potential effects from the program over those 4 months. So there won't be as much effect or any effect from the program. The solicitation for this program did close on March 15th, 2025. So this was last Saturday. So we are currently working on mapping and data analysis for required environmental consultation process that we're required to do. Go to the next slide, please. And then moving on, the second program that we implemented for the 2024 SCIA was the On-Farm Efficiency Conservation Program. This is a voluntary program that provides a conservation payment to participants that reduce water deliveries by improving on-farm water use efficiencies through the verified implementation of field-level conservation measures. A few examples of these conservation measures are sprinkler irrigation, drip irrigation, tailwater recovery systems, land leveling, and irrigation and event management. This program and the DIP program do both require the landowner authorization for the field to participate in the program. We are still finalizing these numbers as well, but provisionally, we have about 185,300 acre feet created through this program for 2024, a portion of which will be used for the SCIA. The other portion will be used for the QSA obligations that IID has. Go to the next slide, please. And then all this conservation is associated with the near-term lower basin drought plan to protect critical Colorado River elevations, which called for 3 million acre feet of water to be left in Lake Mead over from 2023 through 2026. California agencies did commit to 1.5 million acre feet of that water. IID did agree to this, but on the precondition on a state and federal commitment to address mitigation and funding of Salton Sea impacts related to accelerated playa exposure. So in 2022, the Salton Sea commitment letter had designated $250 million to the CNRA for Salton Sea management plan projects conditioned on IID conservation. My understanding is that in 2024, we met those obligations and the $250 million was released for that program or that plan projects. And then next slide, please. And that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer questions if you guys have any.
Anybody from the board have any questions? And then I do believe we have a public comment as well.
I'd just like to ask, is there a link to this presentation that we could get?
I have it on a USB. I can leave it with you guys if you want to do that, or I can send it to you either way.
Yeah, that'd be
Fine with
great.
me.
Thank you.
We'll have it up there this afternoon.
Yeah, excellent presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Great work.
Yeah. And you said there was a comment. Do
Thank you, Don. Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead. You want to do that first or you want to hear the public comment first?
Sure, I'll go first while
Okay.
they're coming forward.
You go.
Thank you for the presentation.
Of course.
So 2 questions I have. First is the status of the federal funding. So the commitment for what's being conserved now on farm and dip. What is the status of the federal obligation?
Yeah, so my understanding is that it was frozen. So we have received a portion of the funding for 2025. I was not present. My understanding is that IID went to Washington DC and was advocating for that money to be released. There are other agencies that have had their funding released since then. So all signs point that it will be released eventually. I'm not sure the current status of it right this second though.
Okay, and then the next question is, was there an economic analysis on the dip, the water conservation, as this money is creating elevation for Lake Mead and the system on the river? The loss with dip on farm conservation is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm reading it is that IID is going to be for on-farm conservation, and system conservation is going to be a beneficiary, and the grower is also going to be a beneficiary. But what about the economic loss for the loss of productivity on the ground?
I mean, it's a voluntary program, so it'll be up to the farmers on if they want to participate or not. We did not evaluate that, so I don't have anything to respond to that. Sorry.
Thank you.
That's a
Maybe
great
the
answer,
board-
Dylan, in terms of the volunteer program.
Maybe the board members could respond to that, though.
I was there, my comments.
Thank you, Dylan. And we will respond, but I would prefer to hear Mr. Eric Reyes first.
Eric Reyes, Executive Director of Los Amigos de Comida. Thank you for the scale. We saw that coming in. What I think is not addressed is what are the true impacts of SKIA versus what on-farm conservation already happening. So we know the Salton Sea is receding from on-farm conservation of a transfer to Coachella, San Diego County Water Authority, and unfortunately, water that goes free to Metropolitan because you're oversubscribing. You're over conserving water, 144,000 in acre feet in 2023. Over 100,000 hasn't been completely verified yet, probably by May, but over 120,000 acre feet at Metropolitan Water for 2024. On top of the 500,000 plus 250 up to 300,000 for SKIA. what do we know? The on-farm conservation of the known transfers are already impacting the sea. And how did Skia? I have estimates from people that I've talked to. They say up to 3,000 acre feet additional just because of Skia last year. It was the worst type of program. The F word should not be used at the IID, should not be used at the Salton Sea, and it's causing an impact, human environmental health impact, that the Salton Sea Authority has an obligation to view further beyond the presentation, but make a statement. Put aside your agency again issues and be the Salton Sea Authority. I think that's why we're having issues in many areas. There wasn't a quantification of how much the Skia impact the Salton Sea. Am I missing something? I'm asking. Nobody can answer? So, and you're talking about money, tons of money. What is this IID going to be doing with an additional $200 million for the next 3 years, $600 million on top of the $200 million they already received for transfers going? Where is that beneficial use for our community that is suffering poor air quality, a receding Salton Sea that is now exposing dangerous pesticides and other issues? Where does the buck stop, and how do we make that our priority? How do we become a force? We want the Salton Sea Authority to be a force. It isn't a force, just as Supervisor Perez eloquently stated, right? We get pushed around and we get ignored, and nobody wants to take responsibility. The buck has to stop somewhere. I think someone making billions of dollars has some part of the responsibility. The IED has to be more proactive, be part of a bigger picture for our whole community, and the Salton Sea Authority should push them on that. You can do it professionally, you can do it unprofessionally, but it should be pushed. It's never broached. We're being too nice to each other. I think this is for an honest dialogue, and we're not having those honest dialogues here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. You want to start, or you want me to start?
I'll start. I don't see anything missing. What you have is the Bureau of Reclamation and the IID presented an environmental assessment under NEPA that was fully analyzed, and the impacts were signed off by both agencies under the temporary conservation. That was fully vetted and discussed. Supplemental to that agreement, there was the Bureau of Reclamation conducted an environmental assessment under this temporary conservation measure as well, and no significant impacts were determined. Again, it's not IID operating in a vacuum. It's IID working with federal partners, conducting both an environmental impact and a biological assessment as well. And furthermore, you have the concurrence letter that is determining that the temporary conservation would not have adverse effects on the threatened or endangered species. So you have the environmental assessment, you have a biological assessment, and then you have an adjudication from the court that basically says that when we were challenged by the Sierra Club, that IID has upheld his obligations, and the case was dismissed. So IID is clearly doing its due diligence, reaching out to the partners, going through thousands and thousands of comment letters, producing documents that are not only signed off by the Imperial Irrigation District, but also by state and federal partners. So there is a very rigorous process that IID is taking place in. In regards to economic impacts, obviously those are also being addressed. And the premise behind our program is that it's a volunteer program, just like the county has a volunteer permitting process when it comes to solar fallowing. So when you look at economic impacts, obviously IID is taking into consideration. The good news is that we are being an incredible partner on the Colorado River, raising the elevation behind Lake Mead, which definitely protects our only source of water. So I do praise the efforts of IAD, the Bureau of Reclamation, CNRA as well, and us coming together and putting a package that addresses impacts both from an environmental standpoint, biological standpoint, and takes in consideration the economic impacts. Thank you.
I would also like to state for the record that I was present in Washington DC with Mr. Palumbo, and he did assure us, I am giving him a 5-star rating, that those funds are released. So it was worth the trip to DC just for that meeting alone. In addition to that, I would, when we are talking about economic impacts, last year we were under the gun. We had a short period of time. This year, when we roll that program out, farmers can choose different start dates, and they can choose different timing periods. In that respect, that can still keep your baler man going. They might have obviously less, but they can still have work because not everybody's going to go into the program at the same time. Whereas before, when you were limited to that 45, 49-day program, that halted everything all at once. So this program will spread that out a little bit more. So we should see less of an economic impact. And I would also like to say, from a farmer's point of view, it was a very tough year last year, and people are not saying out loud, and Mr. Reyes wants it to be said out loud so that we have these conversations. This program helped farmers. It helped them pay their fertilizer bill. It helped them pay their equipment bills. It helped them pay quite a few bills that then that economic impact does go back to the valley itself. So there you go. Those are my comments.
Good. I appreciate both of your comments. And I do recognize that the growers were in a severe distress. And at the time that the DIP program was rolled out, they were in need of that support. So that was good. My concern, and I did read the statement, that there was no significant economic impact that was in the report. I'm concerned that it does have a significant impact of moving this amount of water out of the valley. It will benefit the river. It will benefit all the users and the states. How is it benefiting the people that live here? So that's what I ask, and I don't need an answer today, but I hope that you're considering that this has an overall impact on the hardware store, the barber shop, and every service industry, everything that supports the activity in this valley.
And then I would also like to point out that water cannot fall below those bypass tubes, or we have no valley because we do not have the water here. So I do appreciate your comments, but there's also a big picture.
Well, I think that it's a perfect time for ag benefit, and I think they made significant changes to that program, and that's why I've been an advocate for the ag benefit program that would bring some economic stimulus and maybe some support. But I think it's a perfect opportunity for the county to step up and start convening as a community benefit group again. So these barbershops and fertilizer companies and those can apply for those grant opportunities as well.
Madam Chair, I do have a question for Dylan, if you don't mind coming back to the podium. I'm curious about the level of participation in the program based on your solicitation. Is it exceeding your expectations? Is it oversubscribed? Can you address that?
It's about the same as last year in terms of acreage. We're still evaluating how much conservation we'll get from it. But in terms of acreage, it's about the same. So we'll see. I mean, the time period was so early for a lot of farmers, so there may be a lot that put everything in and they'll pull it out as we go forward and get closer to the implementation date. But at this time right now, we have about the same as last year, subscription. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion? Oh, yes, please do.
So I'd just like to comment on behalf of the Salton Sea Authority. I think that the discussion we had today is evidence of the fact that this is a platform for this type of discussion and for the evaluation of these types of concerns as it relates to health impacts, as it relates to economic impacts. As the executive director, I know that's been a keen interest of mine since I came on board, and certainly since June 11th of 2022, when Commissioner Tooten first announced that they needed to find additional conservation measures. So I appreciate your engagement in the conversation. I think it's important to have. It's important to listen and for all of us to listen and understand the concerns and make sure they're being responsibly addressed. So thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Dylan, for your presentation. I appreciate it. Before we move on, this is for Mrs. Sinclair because I thought maybe you left with 3 more items and we're going to get to the one that I want you to hear. So,
Yeah.
okay. All right. I'm just keeping you glued to your seat. I know this is so exciting. If there's no further discussions, can we move on to Tom Septon? Is he here for the vertical tube evaporator? We're missing you in person, Tom.
Yeah, I wish I could be there in person. I'm sorry I had a vehicle breakdown late yesterday. And I'm not there. I wasn't able to be with you as I intended and wanted, but I'm here virtually. And as soon as I get this bar moved out of my way, the Zoom bar, I will get this going. Here we go. Are you seeing on your screen an image of the Salton Sea with some birds on trees?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, I've made comments in the past on the water issue, and you know, what we haven't talked much about is the impact on the sea. What we do know generally is that the water is going away. The water is being diverted in other places for other needs, and the Salton Sea is shrinking rapidly. The salinity has risen to getting to be close to 3 times ocean salinity. We have accumulation of excess nutrients, and it's a challenge. What do we do about that? I'm going to talk about one thing that we could do about that. It's called a project we've been working on for quite some time on the shore of the Salton Sea, vertical tube evaporation, multi-effect distillation of Salton Sea water. Our company's been around for a while. These are some projects we've had at power plants in Central and Southern California over decades. The bottom right is the one we now have at the Salton Sea. Why the Salton Sea? Because the environmental challenge
I
brought
think
us
you
here
need to-
originally.
Tom, I
Sorry?
think you need to, we're still looking at your title slide.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So the advance is not working?
So you are currently sharing your slide deck and not your presentation.
Uh-oh. That's a problem. Okay, let me see how I can rectify that. I'm going to restart the slideshow. Do you have a full screen now or not?
No, we're looking at your deck.
Okay, that's not good. Maybe I just, all right.
You can click through
Within
it.
the
That-
deck,
yes,
can you see
that
the next
works.
one?
Yes, we can.
I'm just gonna do that then.
Maybe
That's,
make the ribbon go away.
yeah,
and
let's
that'll make it a little better.
see if we can get rid of that.
But that works fine.
Okay.
I'd hate for you to go through your whole presentation on your title slide.
Yeah, that would really not work at all, would it? All right. Yeah, I'm just going to work with this so that I don't get any more problems. Can you see it reasonably?
Reasonably.
Reasonably. Okay. Yeah. Don't see the ribbon kill option here
All the way
easily.
to the right on the bottom.
Let me find it.
Up top.
Top?
Yeah. Top on the ribbon, all the way to the right. Far right. And lower.
Oh, I've got a Zoom screen in front of me. That's
Right there.
probably why I can't see it.
It's okay. We can go with what you got.
Yeah, I don't want to waste any more time. So let's just go ahead with this, even though it's problematic. I don't know why that isn't working, but so you can see something anyway, right?
Yes.
Well, actually, there's one option that might work. Instead of doing this, let's do screen documents. No. Okay. No, I'm just going to go with what we had. Okay. And you're still on the, you still do not have a full screen, is that right?
Now you went back to the title screen.
Okay. Do you have the second screen?
You need to move it down, I think, to the second screen.
Okay, so yeah, you're still not working.
Yeah.
Okay, does you have something that says Sefton Water Technology?
Yes.
That works.
So tell
Okay.
me, what am I looking at? Tell me about
Okay, right. All right. So what this is our company. We've been around for a while. These are water distillation plants we've installed at several power plants in California, Central and Southern Cal over a few decades. Bottom right is one we have currently at the Salton Sea.
Where?
What brought us to the Salton Sea?
Yeah, where? Where is it at?
It is at the southeast corner at Cal Energy Units 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you.
That's where we are now. And what brought us to the Salton Sea was the environmental challenge. And the opportunity at the geothermal plants is steam that you see going up in the air every day. It is what you see going up in the air does not have enough pressure to run turbines, but it's plenty hot enough to distill Salton Sea water. And we use the heat from that to distill Salton Sea water. The method that we use is called vertical tube evaporation. It's fairly simple. You circulate Salton Sea water inside a bundle of tubes. It continuously circulates. The system runs under a vacuum. We bring in steam, which can be from a geothermal source, condenses on the outside of the tubes that evaporates the water inside the tube. And that then becomes pure vapor, which we then condense into pure distilled water from Salton seawater. This again is our demonstration plant at Cal Energy Units 1 and 2. And this is what that equipment looks like physically, currently installed down in the southeast corner. This is how multi-effect distillation as a concept works. We essentially reuse the heat in the steam source multiple times. So we bring geothermal steam in at the right. If we were to use full prime steam, it would be 392 degrees Fahrenheit is where we would start. And then that evaporates Salton Sea water. The vapor from that water is then used a second time, now about 3 to 4 degrees cooler. And it uses that heat in that evaporates additional Salton Sea water. We reuse the heat in that vapor yet again, several degrees cooler, and that again will evaporate the water. With the steam that is just put up into the air, we can do that 15 times over and get a very substantial benefit of efficiency. And if we start with prime steam, we could do that as many as 60 times over with full geothermal heated steam. What a plant might look like for recovering water from geothermal steam would be something like this. And this is our test plant installed adjacent to the one that I showed you, where we've been running these tests for quite a few years. Also at Cal Energy or Berkshire Hathaway Energy Renewables Units 1 and 2. This is the chemistry that you see of major ions in the Salton Sea water. The blue and purple are sodium and chloride. Most of the ions in the Salton Sea are sodium chloride. So you see that as we concentrate and evaporate Salton Sea water, you see a steady rise in sodium chloride. You see magnesium, which is also in fairly high concentration in the Salton Sea, rising steadily. That's the dark red line. And you see the yellow line is sulfate, which which is in quite high concentration in the Salton Sea because of the ag water drainage. But what you see there is it drops as you start to increase the concentration. And what the reason that is sulfate will combine with whatever calcium is in the water. And as you heat it and concentrate it, it'll drop out as gypsum. So we get gypsum coming out of the process. What we do is to get pure water is we get an evaporate, which is pure distilled water out of Salton seawater. We get a 10,000-fold purification, and that's normal for a distillation process. It's not unusual for distillation, and it works just fine with Salton seawater. And the columns on the left are the Salton seawater going into the system. The 4 columns on the right are samples of the distilled water. As you can see, we've got incredibly low levels of salt and incredibly low levels of anything else. We're essentially getting virtually pure water. It is more pure than the drinking water that you get in bottled water. And so we get a very successful purification of Salton seawater. The question is energy use. How do we get high performance and get a lot of water produced, pure distilled water for the amount of steam in? So these are the test results that we've done at our pilot plant showing the thermal efficiency of the process at various different operating points along that multi-effect concept that I showed you, where you reuse the heat in that initial geothermal steam multiple times over by re-evaporating water and using that evaporated heat to drive another effect and another after that and another after that. This is showing a 15 effect system, which would be from the steam that you see just going up in the air every day. And what we find by doing that analysis is we can get 14 pounds of pure water for every pound of waste geothermal steam going into the process. So we take 1 pound of non-commercial steam that goes up in the air. We can get 14 pounds of pure distilled Salton seawater out of that. The question with most desalination things is, what do you do with the salt? So we did an investigation of how to initially we were looking for, can we co-inject the salt with the geothermal process? And so in order to do that, we had to eliminate virtually all of the magnesium and virtually all of the sulfate in the Salton Sea brine that comes out of the process, because if you inject sulfate down hole, you get gypsum coming out of solution and plugging a well. Likewise, at high temperatures with the magnesium, you get magnesium hydroxides plugging a well. So we had to do a pre-treatment to remove those constituents from the Salton Sea water. The process we did to do that was called nanofiltration, and we did an ultrafiltration pre-treatment and nanofiltration process to remove those ions from the water. This is the chemical analysis of what we got. What we got was 99.9% removal of the ions that were a problem for geothermal reinjection, which would give us 99% sodium chloride solution at the end. That was suitable for geothermal reinjection, but the geothermal operators said, well, we've been operating just fine for 40 years. We don't really need injected brine to supplement our process. They do return 90% typically of the water that comes up downhole goes back down. And that's enough to sustain their process effectively for the last 40 years. But when I looked at the chemical analysis, I realized by serendipity, the process we had done for geothermal injection actually gave us pure commercial quality salt. So why not just sell it? And that's the where we're looking now. So our next step after doing these tests and many more that I'm not impinging on your time to show you, next step will be a commercial demonstration project. Here, we're gonna, the site we're looking at is further from the geothermal plants, but on private land on the shore of the Salton Sea. We'd be looking at solar as our solar heat as our heat source to distill the water. We would take in Salton Sea water from the adjacent sea. We would produce pure water, pure salt, and a very small portion of brine. The pure water would go back to the environment, deliver it to the habitat projects. The pure salt we would sell to pay for the process, and the small fraction of mixed salt brine, which also will contain the nutrient fraction, the excess nutrients, we would use in lined salt gradient solar ponds to capture and store the heat of the sun to add to the heat needed to run our process. The process that we plan to do in more detail is take Salton Sea water, do particle filtration, so we get just a pure, essentially a saltwater mix. We run that through an ultrafiltration process to get all the particulates and down to the level of also all the biological material down to bacteria removed from the water. And then that next goes into a nanofiltration process where we separate the ions, getting 95% of that will be a pure sodium chloride brine. 5% of the flow would be the remaining mixed salts. With that 95% pure sodium chloride brine, we use the heat of sunshine to evaporate Salton Sea water. We put that through our distillation process and recover 92% of the water in that Salton Sea fraction as pure distilled water to go back to habitat needs and to essentially improve the quality of the Salton Sea and by outflow right back to the Salton Sea. And we would then have our product would be the pure sodium chloride concentrated in our system to saturation and then dried and bagged and shipped off for sale. The 5% fraction of mixed salts that we would get, we will use that. It will contain some sodium chloride and elevated levels of phosphate and magnesium and every other ion that's in the Salton Sea. It contains most of the periodic table and trace amounts. And that would go, we would recover 75% of that water in a second evaporation process. That 75% recovery of this 5% stream would also go to habitat. The remaining concentrated fraction would go to a salinity gradient solar pond, a lined pond along the shoreline that will suppress dust, but will also capture and store solar heat. We would skim the top of that because the nutrients, that is nitrates and phosphates that are coming off the farms into the sea, causing algal bloom issues and possible bacterial endotoxin issues. That fraction would go into the salt gradient solar pond. It will be taken up by algae trying to grow. We will skim that off the top and compost it to remove the excess nutrients from the sea as well. And then the balance of the distilled water then would go back to the sea to habitat projects. You will note that there's about a 5% missing water. We would make that up from our project with a brackish groundwater recovery from our site. So the basic concept here is to let the problem, which is excess salinity and excess nutrients, pay for the solution. We take the salt that is in the Salton Sea, we purify it to commercial quality and put it up for sale. This is some marketing that's done by other companies selling sea salts from all kinds of sources. And our salt, it will be pure enough to meet these kind of grades. And we will have to overcome a potential ick factor. But if we look at what other people are getting for selling salts on a online retail model, which is where we would start, they're getting substantial amounts per ton of salt that they sell, very substantial amounts. And if we take the 13 tons per day that our demonstration system would produce and look at what they get per ton of salt, we would get between 4 million and just under 6 million in revenue, depending on which company's pricing you compare it to. These are two, one San Francisco Salt Company and another called Saltworks, both located in California and both selling salt at a retail level. And we
Okay,
would look
when you
for a
say
similar model.
I'm gonna
And
interrupt you, Tom, just because we have like less than a half an hour left, but I'm finding this fascinating, but I'm gonna interrupt you. Okay, you said 4 million in a year, 4 million in a day. What was that?
in a year, that's per year.
Per year. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And that's a small that's a minimum commercial demonstration scale. We would market it using the Salton Sea Mermaid as our mascot. This is sorry. Say again.
No, she said it was cute, but is this the new white gold rush then, Tom?
Salt.
Well, I wouldn't say it's not as valuable per ton as lithium. Pure salt at the refined grade sells for about 220 per ton versus many thousands per ton. That said, the economics actually work. The Salton Sea's got 3 to 4 million tons of salt coming in every year from the entire Colorado River drainage system, including the Imperial and Coachella Valley farms. And we can turn that into a revenue source. And what it does is it generates a profit and the water is free. That's basically the idea. The selling of the salt will pay for the purification of the water. And what we know is that the maximum amount anybody's willing to pay for habitat restoration water is $0 per acre foot. So how do you get there? This is how you get there. You sell the salt and potentially some of the biomass that would be accumulated from the nutrients as well.
And what's your capital cost? How many years? What's your rate of return?
Okay, so this actually describes it. This is first 3 years. We've got equipment procurement costs in the range of 3.5 million for the equipment that we'd use some of the equipment that I showed you, and we would add additional equipment to it. So for the additional equipment and the installation, we're looking about 3.5 million. And then we have operating costs, salaries, benefits, site security, we would produce our energy from solar on site. We'll have some fuel costs, packaging, transportation, and so forth. So we've got a total expenses. Let's look at year 2 after we've already amortized or already put in our capital costs. So we would look at about 5.5 million in total revenue. We're looking at an expense of just under 3 million. So we're looking at over 2 million in potential profit. And then we would give away the water to the habitat. So that's what we're looking at. We could do this on a much larger scale as well. And if we did that on a big scale, on a major like 100 million gallons per day distillate capacity scale, which would be 5 fairly large plants co-located with geothermal, we could remove all of the salts coming into the Salton Sea every year. 3 to 6 million tons of salt would be removed.
Can I
Also
interrupt you,
nutrients.
Tom?
Yeah.
And let me interrupt you. Director Perez, do you have a question? You're waving like a crazy person. Maybe there's a fly in there.
Or maybe talking to somebody. The benefits.
Oh, maybe he is. Going, sorry.
The benefits to the Salton Sea by doing this on a large scale, the red line is the trend line we're on with salinity at the Salton Sea. And if we were to do this at a large scale, the blue and green lines are where we would go. So over a couple of decades, we would take the Salton Sea back to where fish can live in it. Birds are back. Recreation is back. And we would eventually get it down to and sustain it at marine salinity.
In
that
how many
is
years?
doable.
I missed that. How many
Okay,
years?
so take about 20 years to get
20
to
years.
reestablishing the habitat quality, and about 30 years to get all the way down to ocean salinity if we want to take it all the way there. And along the way, no, it doesn't just, that's restoring the entire sea. Along the way, what we would do is deliver water to habitats like the picture of the SCH you see, so that they can have blended water quality. You might want to think about this at North Lake because it can work there, even at the potentially that demonstration scale. You've got a challenge with your water supply. Well, what you do have right next to you is the Salton Sea, and there's plenty of it. And if we take that water, extract the salt, take out the excess nutrients, and give you pure water back at no net cost, that might work for the North Lake. So think about it, is all I'm saying.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, just real quick, in regards to the energy, are you guys pursuing a parasitic load to in regards to the desal of the water?
No, not really. Okay, so what we have demonstrated up till now is just using the waste heat from the geothermal plants, and that would be a 15 effect system. And we don't use much electric at all. Actually, we buy our electric from IID right now, so we don't take any electric off the plants. And the steam that we would use would be what they're throwing up in the air every day for the 15 effect initial system. But if we wanted to go really large scale, there's not enough waste steam going up in the air most of the time. So we would, if we wanted to restore the entire sea over time, the way to do it would be to buy steam from the geothermal plants. And we do find that as they move into lithium development and kind of pair that with a sales of power and sales of lithium, some of the plants designed for lithium may have more excess heat than the existing plants do. And so we would propose to, on a large scale, to buy steam at market price, the same price they'd get by turning it into electricity, and use that purchased steam to run our process. And that actually also pencils out, even if we're selling large amounts of salt at bulk level. If we produce at a large scale, we can sell salt at $220 dollars per metric ton, which is the current market price, and it does work, and it will pencil out and provide a modest profit and provide water to the Salton Sea at large scale for free. And over time, as you have the outflow from those habitats going into the sea at lower salinity and lower nutrient load, you would improve the Salton seawater quality over time, and you would improve the habitat creation and sustainability as soon as you build the plant, as soon as it goes online.
Well, I'm ready, Tom. Build it. Do it.
We intend
Valley.
to raise whatever money we can to build it, and we have land selected, and are just beginning a permitting process.
We had hoped to schedule a field trip to visit the demonstration project today, but because of shutdowns at Berkshire Hathaway, we weren't able to do that. We are planning for next month. So if anybody's interested in visiting the site and looking at what he's doing, let me know and we'll make sure we put that together to visit. Thanks.
Yeah,
Tom, for
the
presentation. Appreciate
geothermal
it.
plant will be back in operation in April, and we could probably schedule something in April, early May, or whatever works. Had
Thanks,
some
Tom.
discussions there. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Operating budget.
So, Madam President, members of the board, you have in your packet a draft budget for the 25-26 fiscal year. Nothing really changes materially with respect to the expense line items on the budget. I do not have project dollars budgeted. I think we kind of demonstrated today why that is the case. We're working through what those revenue dollars might look like, but they don't affect our operations. Those are mostly they're totally ins and outs dollars that we administer in trust for the projects. What this reflects is sources and uses of the authority itself based on our assessment, based on where we project to end the current fiscal year, We believe we are recommending that no member contribution changes are affected and that the current member contribution rate is maintained. The only two things that I would point out in the budget is one, that we did pause our state advocacy. I am putting that in contemplation that it will come back. And then I did break out the travel and expense portion just to reflect the conventions and things like that, because those tend to be more easy to budget and tend to be significantly more in cost in bulk for those events. So I just carved those out so that we can track them separately. My intention is to bring it back to the board in May for final approval so that we would invoice that at that time. I'm happy to answer questions now or just leave it with the board for their own internal deliberations, and we can review it in May.
Anybody have any comments? All right.
Lisa.
Okay. Can we move on then to community engagement update?
The board certainly has the prerogative to approve the budget this month, but it was intended
Oh,
for informational purposes at this time.
sure. We will approve it next month. I'm just trying to move on because we are,
As am I,
as exciting as this is,
as am I.
but I just want to make sure everybody has time. I didn't have a problem with the budget. I just want to make sure everybody has time. We should do it next time. So do we have are you giving Tara's presentation?
I am.
Okay. Okay, Tara.
And it
Patrick?
will not be 14 minutes long. We do, Tara had a pre-planned commitment that she wasn't going to be able to be here this month. She did record a presentation. It is on the website, and I would encourage everyone to view it. It talks about the work that we've undertaken so far, where we're at, and where we're going with the process. A couple things that I would present to the board is the prepared key messages. What we are endeavoring to do is to be on the same page, that we, as it relates to the Salton Sea Authority, as it relates to the Salton Sea generally, that we're saying the same thing, whether it's with respect to projects, whether it's with respect to public health and safety, whether it's respect to anything relating to the Salton Sea. We may never get there, but if we don't put it down and start talking about what we agree on, then we'll never get there. So part of this exercise is creating this key messages narrative, which will also be provided to the board in individual components, so that if you're only focusing on one particular issue, then you can take that with you for any presentation you might be making. So that's in your been prepared. It's provided on the website. It's accessible, and we would welcome your feedback on that. The other is the schedule of work for CV Strategies under their agreement. There is a PERT chart, which I know this board loves to see, for the work that they're undertaking, and it deals with the authority broadly from a public relations standpoint, but it also attempts to address things like the feasibility study, like the conservancy, like aspects relating to Colorado River, and what we want to be doing over the course of the next months and years as far as rolling out informational programs that help people come along with us in the work that we're undertaking. And the last thing I would like to share that we've distributed out here locally is what we call a leave behind, is a document. It is a draft, so we do want feedback on it, but what it's intended to do is whether we're having a public meeting or meeting with our congressional delegation or our state assembly, it's something that we can leave behind that helps people understand who the Salton Sea Authority is, what we're doing with the state, the projects, the history, and some images of different projects around the sea. In particular, those images were intended at the last few pages were intended so that if you're visiting a site and you're on the ground, it just gives you some sense of spatial relationship to everything that you're at. It was mentioned earlier about the Salton Sea History Museum. One of the other things that I'm particularly interested in, at Owens Lake, they actually have a facility not unlike what's available at the state park, except what they have is a history of Owens Lake. And they talk about the environmental impacts associated with the the changes that took place, what LADWP did to implement mitigation measures, and different sights and sounds to see around the sea. So I think with respect to the state park, I would love to work with the state and with the local community to see what we can do to make it a more of an information center that helps people understand where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going with respect to the restoration of the sea. So I wanted to be as cogent, but as brief as possible in the interest of time, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But most certainly, I would like you to review the information, both personally and with respect to your respective agencies. If there's any concerns about the messages that are in there, if there's something that's missing from there, let us know. When Kara's back in May, this will be a more complete set, and hopefully we'll be off and running with it. Happy to answer any questions.
I really like the Salton Sea milestones. I think that's like one of my favorite pages in here. Anyway, and then I've kind of seen a sneak peek before, so no, I think it looks good. I also like that you didn't do, it's a funny size. I like that too.
Did what?
It's a funny size. It's not a regular brochure. I like that too.
I didn't know what to expect until I picked it up yesterday. I think it's pretty cool.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think
And it's
stands out.
intended to be adaptable. So
Right.
it's something that we can crank out. We can edit it down for a specific project, for a specific purpose. It's just a tool. We're not going to print 10,000 of these.
Mhm.
We're going to print them for whatever we need them for, targeted to whoever we're visiting with.
And I also like that you used real people because I recognize some of them. So I think that's fabulous too. It's not the,
So that was the
fake
first thing that
picture.
CD Strategies observed with our website. We've got loads of pictures of birds and fish and water, but no people. And they said, you've got to have people in there. And I think that's exactly right.
Mhm.
And that concludes my presentation.
Anybody else have any comments? I think it looks
And
good.
part of
Kara's
that
doing-
involves working together with community-based organizations like Mr. Reyes
Mhm,
in putting on
mhm.
events.
All right.
Segue.
That was a great segue. Let's move on to Imperial Valley Salton Sea Summit. Mr. Reyes, welcome back.
No. Oh, okay. Right.
You're doing it? You're going to share.
You have it.
Oh, you
She'll
should.
share. Thank you. My IT person Isabel is working. Yeah, Eric Reyes again, Executive Director, Los Amigos de la Comunidad.
It'll pick you up fine.
Okay, so I have been asked to speak at various conferences on the Salton Sea, sometimes with Brian, sometimes Patrick has been there, and IID personnel have been there as well, county and others, and it's all been in Coachella Valley, Riverside County, University of California, Riverside, and you see Riverside in Palm Desert. And I think they've held 3 different ones every other year, correct? And we've been going the last 2 years. So after the last one, you know, we were all discussing, and people that were there and some of the professors and others were saying, well, why have we had one in Imperial County? We have the biggest impact. We have the receding sea where it's receding fastest on the south end. And we have the most impacts, and we have the most potential with lithium development as well. That also causes impacts to the sea itself. And we said, okay, well, let's put together. So with technical support from Michael Cohen from the Pacific Institute, who helped run the last Salton Sea conferences, and Imperial Valley College stepped up to host it with us, co-host. The 3 of us are co-hosting, Los Amigos de la Comunidad. We put together the Imperial Valley Salton Sea Conference, and it's going to be Friday, May 9th, 2025, 1-day conference. Theirs is 2 days. We decided for the first one, we'll do 1. It'll run from opening doors 8:30, introduction at 9. There'll be a continental breakfast provided by ABC. 9 o'clock introductions by President Isabel Solis. And I have here the next slide. I have a tentative agenda. As you see there, Dr. Lenore Johnson, the president of Imperial Valley College, and Michael Cohen as well from the Pacific Institute. We'll give a brief introduction and welcome, thanking everyone for participating. I will then give a conference focus before we go into the panels. And we're going to do it in reverse. Where usually they start with science and agencies and so on, we are going to start with community panel first. What are the residents, frontline personnel, people that live around the area, and general people who are engaged on the Salton Sea? What are they going to be thinking and saying so the public can hear that first? Tentatively, we have Hector Cervantes of the California Foundation, Graciela Ramos, who lives in the Salton City area, from Rostros y Corazones. Amato Evan, who's doing air quality that Los Amigos is involved with him on UC Irvine, who have done extensive outreach. Tom Stephen, I broached it with him. I have not confirmed yet, but hopefully Tom. Janet Angulo from Imperial County Health Department, so we can bring home a health component of where they at, what are the standards that we're looking at, and where are we going. And I think he's on here in Corbin Dillon, who has been involved in the Salton Sea in many ways, including being a lithium operator trainee graduate from IBC, and now is into the chemical technician part and wants to be at the end instrumentation to show how the impact of possible jobs are happening. And those are things that we'll be discussing. From there, I had a tentative agreement with IID. Are we still on?
We're on.
Okay, so it was kind of off and on, but he says we're on officially. So I'm very happy that the ID has agreed to do this. This is, you always talk about breaking glass ceilings. This is one for me that the ID is breaking. You're going to be having a full presentation. They are going to run the first part of this presentation. They're going to give a perspective on the Salton Sea and water in our region from the IID's perspective. So they will run it completely. At this point, we have Ms. Asbury, the general manager, Chairwoman Gina Duckstetter, and Director Cardenas. I don't think Mr. Holbrook, I had already put that on there, so.
No, we kicked them out.
Okay, kick them out. Great. And then there's gonna be, after they are done with their presentation without interruption, so they can have their full.
We're gonna leave.
There will be a Q&A session for the public, and he says, bring it on.
3
And I said,
minutes.
we will bring it on. From 20, maybe 30 minutes, depending when they finish theirs, but guaranteed 20, right? 40 was the max, hopefully 30. Q&A session, that's something we have asked for a long time. This will be something that will be beneficial to the community. It'll be on Zoom, and we'll put it on our YouTube channel after, and this will be there forever. And we can hold people accountable to everything. And the discussion, like I said, we need to have hard discussions, honest discussions, be respectful, but honest discussions is all we ask for, and move us forward. From there, we have the Colorado River Regional Water Quality Board presentation. They are going to come to a half hour on their perspective in the Colorado negotiations, obviously ongoing as well. And I'm sorry, we put the lunch break. Before the lunch break, we will have a keynote speaker to the whole crowd from our state senator, tentatively scheduled, Steve Padilla.
Nice.
He has agreed to be here at that time. Half an hour he will make, which will include a Q&A. He'll talk about his legislative updates, workforce development updates, and obviously the Salton Sea Conservancy, which is still in the works, and we have no idea how that impacts the Salton Sea Authority as well at this point, right? Is it competition? Are you going to be together? Is it going to enhance or just create another bureaucracy? We don't know. I don't think they know either at this point. And I say tentative because, as we know, federal administration and California administrative have their issues. There might be things they have to come back for emergency. So he says tentatively, yes, he will be here. We caught him running in between sessions in Sacramento. It's really interesting. And he gave in after being persistent. So then we will have a lunch provided by Los Amigos de la Comunidad in the area there. And then after that, we will have a great presentation by the California Natural Resources Agency, Salton Sea, on the Salton Sea Management Plan, SSMP. They'll give an overall view of their annual report, not the whole annual report, but an overall view, and also have a Q&A, and that is being led by Joe Shea, who we've met with. Thank you. Mario Llanos, Miguel Hernandez, who is here, and I don't know who else they're bringing. So that's going to be an interesting part of the presentation as well. And at the end, the last panel will be the Lithium Valley panel. And we have the California Energy Commission. We'll hear Noemi Gallardo. has committed to be here and she will lead that panel. We have asked Brian Kelly, County Imperial Supervisor, this Division 4 to be there. Brian Mooney, he was asked, he has not confirmed yet, but we will ask him from Duty Consulting. California Air Resources Board will also be there, and Rod Caldwell from Controlled Thermal Resources at this point tentatively has agreed from CTR to be on the panel as well. And those are all relevant to the Salton Sea, the future of it, and where we move forward, right? So all of these is what we want to bring an emphasis to Imperial Valley Salton Sea Conference. No disrespect to Coachella Valley. Someone said, how come you know anybody from Coachella? They're involved too. They've had the conferences there. We want to be able to state to no disrespect, it's just to state to everyone that we are having the biggest impacts. We can show that. We have the most potential with lithium development. Everybody knows that. They all want a piece of it, right? Even those who don't deserve it, right? So everybody wants a piece of something that we have, yet we have to make it work for us. Salton Sea Authority has to be part of that process. The new Salton Sea Conservancy has to be part of that process. Our county, state, and federal government have to be part of that process. And we as NGOs have to be part of that process to make it work for our community that is equitable and at the end beneficial for everyone. And that will be our driving statement that day. That we have impacts, they need to be taken care of, but we also have opportunity. We need to be invested in equitably like other areas are, right? So that is my Salton Sea Conference. The next slide there. As you see, as someone said about flora and fauna, I have people in every slide there because as we did frontline community outreach on Lithium Valley, and I do other work on the Salton Sea and air quality, that's who's impacted the most. They're not here at the Centro Chamber usually. I mean, Supervisor Chamber. Those are that's Nyland. The prior one was Calipatria. So why are we having this? The receding Salton Sea. I'm gonna just preach to the choir, but it needs to be told over and over in honest dialogue. We have an exposed lake bed. We have toxic dust. Colorado River Compact negotiations ongoing behind closed door, maybe slowed down because of the new administration, but ongoing that will have a huge impact to our future. Known contaminants that are becoming more dangerous by the UC professors that are putting out these new studies. I mean, there's been a big influx of new studies and how damaging that is. Fertilizer from generations as well. The water itself is has contaminants that they're exposing. Frontline communities, again, every time we want to talk, we want to talk about the people that are impacted. Sustainability, what is the true answer about the sustainability? A young lady spoke about, more tourists and eco. Well, how can we have that if we have all these toxic issues as well? That has to be taken care of when we want to make full benefit of the beauty of the Salton Sea at times, right? At times, not always. All right. Who's involved? Imperial Valley College as co-host, Pacific Institute, and Los Amigos de la Comunidad. Major funding here, sponsorship by Imperial County Board of Supervisors. Thank you for the Community Benefit Fund. I think money well spent. I think we'll get a lot out of it and move forward with it. California Air Resources Board will present. GAFCON was a community partner sponsor as well. We thank them. They are deeply involved in development around that area as by your contract that you just remodeled right there, remodified, right? And hopefully better and bigger projects in the future. International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers as sponsors, they are deeply engaged in the construction phase of Lithium Valley and more. California Water Board, as you know, they'll be there. Audubon Society, who has a deep commitment to the Salton Sea, California Natural Resources Agency, and the State of California Energy Commission. Those are some of the players involved. And why? Again, the next slide. We see the sea receipt. And you go to Red Hill Marina, that's the most dramatic area that was surrounded by water. Now you don't see the water. The next one. And I want to put the date here. The date here, I got this from Pacific Institute, Michael Cohen at this presentation. And the date is 1/13/2010. We have had this issue for generations, right? Whiteouts. The next one, please. 2010. Now they're becoming more frequent. We have less predictable weather patterns, and we have a receding sea that is exposing high dangerous toxic dust, PM 2.5, PM 10, which we have lived with generations, but now we're mixing in more life-threatening issues. We already have the highest asthma rates heart attack rates related to and respiratory problems in the state. So Imperial Valley Salton Sea Conference, the next page. Again, it's May 9th, 2025 from 8:30 to about 4:30. There is our QR code to be on there. Starting Monday, now that we finished with IDC and now that I have finalized the agenda, it will be out for registration starting Monday. And our website, losamigosdelacomunidad.com, will also have a dedicated Salton Sea Conference site that you can register, but we'll put it out through all medias and so on. We have had great interest. The ag community is also interested. We have discussed putting them on one ag community on one of the panels, probably the community panel as well. Whereas we feel at times left out as community members of what IAD and the ag community do. We feel we cannot do the same. So we have reached out to a few to see who will commit to being there and be part of the process. And I think there's some good people that will want to do it. I know they've already discussed things they would like to say, and I think it's very pertinent and very useful. I just want to thank you for that if you have any questions, but before that, I just want to backtrack on something. We never said not hold the water at Lake Mead. In these 3 years, it was vital. We're saying the impacts have to be mitigated in a much better way than it is. And the feds and the states are backstopping because they want that water to be there. We all understand that. Yet there's impacts we are always taking the brunt of. We are sacrificed for the greater good. It's time that we take care of ourselves also. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Ray, is Assemblyman Gonzalez choosing to participate, or is he involved or engaged?
He's invited to participate.
So is he on a panel?
Not at this point. We'll see.
Has he denied or it chose not to participate?
No. We haven't
But an
broached that.
invitation's been extended to him.
To be there, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Appreciate it. I also note that both Eric's and Tom's presentation will be on our website this afternoon.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
I'm gonna do some fact checking as far as that, because Mr. Reyes did state that we have the highest asthma rate in the state. But I'm not saying it's not high, but I don't think that's the truth.
Hospitalization rate.
Okay, there you go.
This was stated the other day, and you were very interested at the last Salton Sea Conference when they stated that, I think Sacramento or San Joaquin Valley. Part of it is that's hospital visits. In our area, we have Mexicali, we have home remedies, and we have people who can't afford even making a hospital visit. So if we're anywhere close, we're way above. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
So, and we would endeavor, Madam President, as part of our communications campaign to make sure that that information is reflected accurately.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Reyes, for your presentation.
I say that from the ground up. I'm just saying.
Yes.
If there's no other comments, can we move on to the Conservancy, SB 583?
Yeah, Madam President, I am going to move quickly through this both in the interest of time and acknowledging that Assistant Secretary Shea and I have had several significant discussions over the course of the last couple of weeks with respect to the implementation of the Conservancy. He's doing a lot of work on that. I think that the authority does have a significant role in the Conservancy because a third of the board of the Conservancy will be comprised of Salton Sea Authority member agencies, and the Salton Sea Authority president will also sit on the Conservancy board. Joe is also a member of our board as an ex officio member, and he is working to pull that together. We have had conversation, and that conversation, we talked about it at our last meeting, his timeline. The other thing I wanted to point out in particular in regards to that is the Conservancy is funded through Prop 4. There's $10 million within Prop 4. I do note that the Prop 4 legislation indicates that some of that money is ostensibly for the Salton Sea Authority. There are some vagaries in that language, I will admit, but I don't think there was any vagueness in the intent that the authority was part of the consideration for setting that money aside. And as I reviewed the earlier budget, there are dollars that are what we refer to as partner support. That some of the monies in there that I'm anticipating getting will be from Prop 4, and it'll be offset by strategies that we collectively agree upon with the state. And that would probably be communication strategies dealing with the feasibility study, dealing with the conservancy, dealing with Colorado River issues as we work out those programs and whose resources to best utilize with what funding. And I'm confident we can work through that. So that's really all I had to discuss on that particular line item, and I'm prepared to answer any questions and move beyond it at the desire of the board.
The only concern, if I may, Madam Chair, is that we do not have representation currently in Sacramento. So, Mr. O'Dowd, can you just tell me, in terms of the tip of the spear here and putting a wall or securing those funds around Prop 4, what is your strategy, sir?
So that is a good question. That was an issue that I was going to deal up in my executive director's report.
All right.
And so I was going to recommend to the president that she appoint a task force or ad hoc committee of the board to work with me. As you know, in order to implement our public relations contract, we paused that. We have had conversations with member representatives in that regard. We also have had outreach from people who are interested in our business, providing us information on legislation that's taking place. So that is something that requires immediate address. Just real quickly, since I've mentioned it, Senator Padilla has two bills in particular, SB 534 and SB 369, which we have been contacted and asked what our positions are on that. And so I think that putting together this ad hoc committee, working together with the member agencies, gaining their positions, we can move forward with that. I also am working with State Senator Padilla's staff to put together a meeting to talk about exactly his perspective on the Conservancy and his perspective on other matters to make sure that we're aligned and working more closely together.
Madam Chair, if action can be taken, or not necessarily action, but direction be given, and so we do not wait for another month, that ad hoc committee, is it an ad hoc committee or a standing committee, or how would you categorize it?
It can be the discretion of the board. I would defer to counsel as to his guidance. It could be a task force from my perspective.
Right. So, Madam Chair, I'm not opposed to them formulating a task force. I am not available though, but if there is a need for a task force, I think that needs to be done sooner than later.
Yeah, I actually agree 100% with you. I think,
and that is my strong recommendation.
Is this for a lobbyist?
It's to address the current Sacramento situation, just our overall advocacy strategy, working together with staff, working with our advocates, our existing and potential future advocates. So just kind of framing what we're doing in that space to make sure that we're utilizing the resources of all of our member agencies and at the same time giving voice to the collective desire of the authority membership.
So yes.
Yes. Oh, come on. That was my abbreviated answer.
So suggest, just for everybody's consideration.
can you turn your mic on?
Go with the ad hoc, but do an informal RFP, get 3 or 4 groups and then bring it to the ad hoc. If you will have a time.
That would be our approach.
But can I just say that's an excellent suggestion, but it has to be done with expediency, Mr. O'Dowd.
I think we have some decisions that we're going to need to make with the resources we currently have available.
Good.
So this will potentially happen before our next board meeting via email or?
Well, I think we're giving direction for the task force or ad hoc
Okay.
move forward, but I think this board needs to see something quick. Considering we'll be in April next month.
Okay. Directions given.
All right. And that concludes my executive director's report. Sorry, I cut in front of you, Lisa.
That's okay. All right, Lisa, you're up.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I'll try to make it fast because I know we may be running a little bit over.
I'm missing the taco cart, but that's okay. Go, Lisa.
We convened a number of meetings in DC in February at the end. We were, our president was with us and Patrick. We have been working for a lot of years really to get the feds engaged at the Salton Sea, and just to there was a time when the federal government sort of believed that they didn't really have a financial responsibility for some of these things like mitigation in Colorado River. I think we've turned the page on that, and it's just, I think, helpful to remember that, right? The $250 million commitment associated with the short-term water conservation measures is evidence of that. The Corps of Engineers feasibility work that we're doing with the state as a joint local sponsor is further evidence of that. So that work was started actually under the first Trump administration. President Trump signed that feasibility work. At the end of the Biden administration, we were successful in putting ourselves on a sound financial footing for that study by securing really the largest amount in administration funding for the feasibility study, so that we are in a good financial standpoint or position through FY26. And so, and the intention, when you look at that, this sort of $250 million short term, that's kind of immediate short-term impacts. The idea behind the Corps of Engineers work was really to bring the federal government into a financial relationship with our long-term management, and we've been successful at doing that. And so Patrick, Director Dotstader, and I met with the Corps of Engineers acting assistant secretary, who's been a longtime supporter actually of the project, has been at the Corps of Engineers through Republican administrations and Democratic ones, is very plugged in. We met with her and a number of her staff, all very positive about moving forward with the study. We have not seen any kind of retreat from that, which is a pretty, this is a very, it's a different time. I've worked in politics for almost 30 years. It has definitely been a different transition in the last 2 months than I've experienced in the past, which I think it's all the more kind of noteworthy, sort of the idea that, the IRA funding that IID has secured for its water conservation programs, the $250 million, and also the Corps of Engineers funding, all of that is continuing to flow. And I think that is a reflection of our collective efforts as individual districts and counties and the authority itself to really bring together a coalition to support that work at the sea. And so we definitely are meeting with the Corps of Engineers, was at the highest level we could, the acting assistant secretary is the top of the Corps, very positive. We met with Congressman Maurice directly, who's, just to pass along to you, was very emphatic about ensuring that the core study continues, or feasibility work continues, and that it ultimately addresses not only ecosystem type impacts, but the public health impacts, which is certainly a lot of what's driving the Corps of Engineers feasibility work and our participation in that. We had, very positive meetings with our Senate delegation. Senator Schiff now is on actually Senate Ag, in addition to Senate Environment and Public Works. Senator Padilla is on Energy and on EPW as well. And so they all have a role in future legislation where, as we move forward with the core study, it's likely that we may seize opportunities really to make that work, I think, more streamlined. One of the issues that we have in the future when we go to implement projects will be, how does the Corps and the joint partners, how do we do work on federal lands? And that's something we've been talking about. How to actually get projects on the ground sooner. It's just sort of a reflection of all the things I think we've talked about today with respect to the North Lake work. We want to make sure that we put ourselves in the best position with the Corps to enable those projects to unfold more quickly than they might otherwise do that. We also met with Congressman Calvert, who's actually is now our only California appropriator. We met with his legislative director. That was also a very positive discussion. We will not be in need of or have demand for funds until FY27. And so Patrick and I are working on that. Also, any opportunities that we might have in legislation to, again, facilitate the Corps working faster when we get to a design and construction part of this feasibility process. If anyone has any questions, I've been have been working across the federal government. We have clients kind of in different spaces. I will say the Corps of Engineers has been in, I think, better shape than some of the other agencies that you might work with. Still a lot to be determined, but anyway, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Lisa. No questions, and it was a pleasure to go with you to that meeting. That was good time. All right.
Yeah.
If no one has any further questions, Miguel Hernandez, you're up. She had a meeting.
Hi, everybody. Miguel Hernandez with the Salton Management Program. Have a brief update, mostly on events that we had this past month. We've been really active out in the community. Been invited all kinds of places, so that's pretty fortunate for our program for people to get to know about our work. We've had a couple of tours with some of our legislators, thanks to the Imperial County that we were part of a tour with Senator Adam Schiff. And then subsequently we're invited, thank you, Patrick, for inviting us to visit the SCH project. We were at the visitor area. We talked about the project, but also talked about our work at the C with Assemblymember Jeff Gonzalez in that visit. So that was pretty fortunate for our program. That was actually the first not so formal conversations we'd had with our new legislators. So that's a pretty good start for them to see firsthand the project. Hopefully in the future we'll have more time to give them a full, more robust tour of our projects. So yeah, and been doing presentations. We've been at the recreation district at the yacht club. We also were part of a documentary that Canal 66 is doing. Hopefully they'll air it out pretty soon, and they're doing a sort of a binational documentary, which I think is going to be a pretty nice product. Then you know, some of the upcoming events that we have coming up will be next week. We have the Community Engagement Committee. We're meeting on Thursday, March 27th. We will be discussing primarily the annual report, but more so the public events that come with the annual report. So we would just talk about our format, talk about what we're going to be covering during that meeting. And we also have a set of presentations that our team has prepared for this meeting. So we also have our partners at the water boards, from the water boards, speaking about the upcoming Salton Sea workshop that the water board will host in May. So I mentioned the annual report. As you know, we are committed. We have the obligation of getting an annual report in March. So please expect that to be released, you know, within the next 10 days or so. We'll have that on our website. We'll get that out through our newsletter, send it out to our partners. And in case you don't get it or members of the public doesn't see it, please feel free to reach out. Feel free to reach out to me or our team so we can get you a digital copy of the annual report. We will eventually have physical copies for the public meetings. We are expecting to have those public meetings be late April. We're actually looking at the week of April 28th, which is depending on the venue. We will have an in-person meeting where we will cover the annual report in a more sort of engaging manner. Similar to last year, we will do some breakouts. We'll do a bit of a more hands-on type of experience. We're still defining. We'll, you know, like I said earlier, we'll talk to our engagement committee to get some recommendations so we can have the best approach for that public meeting. So again, week of the 28th. Hopefully when we release the annual report, we have nailed down a date for that public meeting and a venue and everything, so we can send that date out and we'll get working on our event promotion. Also, another important event, Mr. Arreyes mentioned the Imperial Valley Salton Sea Summit. We will be there, as he mentioned, so May 9th as a reminder. And then also we are preparing our first ever Earth Day event as part of the Salton Sea Management Program. We're doing this at the community of Salton City. We actually will be doing a seed collection event. We will be hoping to get volunteers to help us with the seeds that are coming off from the iodine bush that we currently have for our veg enhancement projects. So we will be doing a hands-on activity with folks to help us kind of sort of clean the seed, and we'll use that same seed to enhance other areas of the same project. So I'm pretty excited about that. Like I said, it's the first time that the program puts together an event for Earth Day. We are doing this in collaboration with different partners. Mentioned a few. We're doing this with Alianza, with Autobahn, with Ecomedia Compass, with Comité Cívico, and others that might join us as we get there. The date for that, it's April 26th. That's a Saturday morning. So more information will be on the way, but it's in Salton City. We don't have like a specific address, more of a pinpoint where we meet. I believe it's the corner of Leto and Court at Salton City, but more information will be shared on through our channels and our website. Everybody's welcome to come. Volunteers encouraged to be there. We'll have all protective equipment and all the necessary tools to get us through the activity as well. And we'll have actually a bit of a program when we are doing this activity. We'll talk about the importance of the seed, how this benefits for the suppression at the sea, and also how it helps wildlife and fauna at the sea. So I think it's going to be a pretty nice event for the community. And just as a reminder, on the Water Board Salton Sea Workshop, they have shared that the meeting is happening, or the conference will happen May 21st, pretty much an all-day event. And it's happening in Coachella. There's still a location to be determined, but it is going to be in the region, which is great. So just as a reminder, May 21st. And that concludes my report. Oh, one more thing, if I could just make a point for a future item as an informational item for the SEH project. We would like to come back with some pictures and videos that we can share more about what we're doing, especially on the work that we're doing with the expansion. So I know most of you, if not all of you, have been there, but just the recent progress that we've achieved there in the last few months, it's quite impressive. So we want to share some of that. For sure, yeah.
I think that would be perfect, Miguel. Thank you. And you are not allowed to bring 30 slides. I'm just saying that up front. We need a limit, but you can't wait.
Right
That
on.
would be fabulous.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all.
Thank you. I believe now it's Taylor's turn. He's online.
Good afternoon. Just going to present some quick visitation numbers and then talk a little bit about what we've done in the past couple months. So for sake of time, I'll combine January and February. We had 6,050 visitors day use wise for the SRA, which was a 23% increase from 2024. And we had 4,424 campers over the course of January and February, which is a 29% increase from 2024.
And what was I'm sorry, what was the previous increase that you said? For the visitors?
23 for day use and 29% increase for camping. So we've expanded our kind of programming for Salton Sea history talks and such. So we've been out and about presenting to a bunch of different groups. We did have the Audubon Salton Sea tour that stopped at our park. That was a nice experience. Talked a little bit about the recreation area, but also the history of the basin and what has been here prior. We have had multiple K through 12 visits. We have a few colleges that are regularly revisiting the park each season now. So just slowly kind of building up that just what we have to offer, and more people being informed about the sea. In addition, we've increased some programming, so we have regular weekend bird walks that are offered to the public. And essentially that's it for me. Always open to any messaging that you may want to share with the public that we can get out in the visitor center. Just let me know, and we can disseminate that information and train staff to deliver it. So thank you and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you, Taylor. I always look forward to hearing how many people went out there. I love those fun facts. So thank you. Is Alan, oh wait. Yep, is Alan Pace on? I don't believe I saw him. Is he? For the Salton Sea Action Committee?
He dropped off, but I do see Juan.
He's
Delara,
probably
you
at
may
the taco
speak.
cart. Oh, Juan Delara's on. Juan, are you ready?
I got a text from Juan earlier. He said, Happy National Ravioli Day. So
Ah,
I don't know if he has anything to report besides that one. Sorry if I stole your thunder.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. No, you didn't. Alan was going to be on and we didn't have a report. So I wasn't prepared to speak nor to give a report because we have none. But we'll have one next month.
that's okay. I'm glad. I'm hungry. Thanks, Juan.
Have a blessed afternoon.
You too. Okay, Patrick, executive report.
I covered my comments in my earlier remarks, so I think we're good.
All right, if no one has anything else, we stand adjourned.
All right. Thank you all.